Patel froze for a moment, the kind of silence that says more than 1,000 words. Cameras clicked, lawmakers leaned forward, and the room went dead quiet. Representative Rosa DeLauro wasn't letting go. She wanted one thing from the FBI director: answers. Not vague reassurances, not polished talking points. Just the truth about $500 million that had quietly vanished from the Bureau's budget. Patel adjusted his mic, but the hesitation said it all. In that instant, everyone watching knew this wasn't just another budget hearing. It was a showdown over power, transparency, and trust that DeLauro had been on Capitol Hill long enough to recognize political doublespeak when she heard it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, you have previously stated that your #1 priority for the FBI is to end violent crime in the United States. The budget request slashes the FBI budget by more than $500 million, below the current level. It quite literally would defund law enforcement, including, it would appear, cutting a number of FBI intelligence analysts who work on critical national security issues. How is it possible to cut more than $500 million, or more than 5% below a hard freeze in the FBI's operating budget, without impacting the law enforcement and national security-related functions of the FBI? Please specify exactly which positions would be cut.
Ma'am, at this time, we have not looked at who to cut. We are focusing our energies on how not to have them cut by coming in here and highlighting to you that we can't do the mission on those 2011 budget levels. And so what we're focusing on is right now is working with our partners in OMB, the appropriators, to say that we cannot cover down on the mission at the levels that we would have to go to, which would be the 2011 levels, should all the budget cuts you just outlined be implemented.
So, but are you talking about coming up here with a budget request that restores the funding that has been cut, that it's a defunding law enforcement? You're talking about $500 million below the current level. How would you restructure the budget to get to what you need in order to be able to make sure that we are not defunding law enforcement and that we are not cutting the analysts that you need in order to be able to do your job and to be dealing with national security issues? I don't understand. You've got a budget request, $500 million less, and you're cutting people. You don't know who you're going to cut. You don't want. Tell us which it is. Are you going to restore that $500 million? You're going to request restoring that $500 million?
Well, as I said, I'm not the budget expert, but the budget request that we put in, the FBI, was $11.2 billion, I believe. And we are working through the appropriations process and the OMB process and the skinny budget that we've received to work with y'all to help us get to a number. And I believe if we got back the number you stated, we would not have to cut more FBI.
So with a $500 million cut, more than 5% below the hard freeze of the FBI's operating budget, you believe that then this would not impact enforcement or national security-related functions? Then what are the positions? I'm going to ask the question again. What positions are you looking to cut? What is the cut for this $500 million? Now, apparently that $500 million, you're not in the budget department, but this is your budget. This is your budget. You have to have some idea of what you want to fund or not fund, or where you think you can cut or not cut, and provide that information to OMB. I'm unclear, and it seems to me that you are, as to what should be the budget of this agency, and if it's $500 million lower, what are the positions that you believe will have to be cut in order to reach the mandate that you are bringing forward to us in terms of your budget?
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. That's the proposed budget, not by the FBI. The proposed budget that I put forward is to cover us for $11.1 billion, which would not have us cut any positions. The proposed budget.
So the skinny budget is we don't have, the skinny budget is wrong.
The skinny budget is a proposal, and I'm working through the appropriations process to explain why we need more than what has been proposed
So
in
what,
that
what
budget.
do you need? You need $11.2 billion?
Approximately.
Okay. Now, is that going to be delineated? I don't know what that means in terms of cuts that would be coming up to reach that goal. So there would be no additional positions deleted from the FBI if you get that amount of money.
That's correct.
And that's what we anticipate is coming in a budget that we anticipate at some point. We don't know when we're going to get it, even though we will be in markups by the time this effort is underway. But according to what we have received from the FBI, there are 904 positions that are currently slated for transfer from Washington, D.C. to field offices that are currently vacant. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is, what, is there any explanation of why these positions are moving to field offices? One of the things we can't seem to get answers to, and this is not you, is programs are being deleted, programs that are being frozen, dollars are being frozen, programs that are being cut. We don't have any sense on this committee, which is the Appropriations Committee, and making a determination of what we should or shouldn't do, is any evaluation from any agency so far, and I ask this of you, what is the criteria? What are the programs that are going to be potentially left behind? What is the evaluation process here that says why these programs are no longer functional or not working? What is the story? Can we get from you when we're going to get some sort of an idea of what is a budget that you can deal with? Is what will be, what may be cut, what may not be cut, and why? What's the criteria by which that these programs would be, the evaluation is to transfer them out? Or why are these people going to field offices? Can we get that from you?
Yeah, I can give it to you right now, ma'am. The short answer as to why these folks are going to the field is because we are moving agents, intel analysts, and SOSs across the country into every state to get a hand-level grasp on violent crime in every single community. We're moving those folks out there.
Okay, but I just will wrap up, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. You need to provide for us, specify exactly which so-called, quote, overhead positions are being cut, and since other federal agencies are also proposing position cuts, how won't this cut inevitably reduce the FBI's intelligence analytic capabilities? We need to have that information before we can determine what the budget is.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Yield back.
Mr. Klein.
The FBI had submitted a skinny budget proposal that slashed funding by more than 5%, about $500 million. That's not a paper cut, that's an amputation. For an agency that calls violent crime its top priority, it made no sense. So she asked the most obvious question in Washington. What are you cutting? Patel started talking about process, collaboration, and working through appropriations. It sounded polished, until you realized he hadn't answered a single part of the question. Every sentence looped back to bureaucracy. Every phrase dodged specifics that DeLauro wasn't buying it. She cut in, voice sharp but steady. This is your budget. You have to know what you're cutting. The pause that followed was brutal. Patel finally leaned forward, hands clasped, and said, "We don't have the skinny budget. It's wrong." That line was supposed to clarify things. It didn't. It made them worse, because how could the director of the FBI disown his own agency's official budget proposal? If the Bureau didn't write it, who did? And if it was wrong, why hadn't anyone corrected it before it hit Congress? DeLauro's patience was wearing thin. She wasn't just a lawmaker that day. She was the voice of every taxpayer trying to figure out where their money was going. The exchange became a ping-pong match of questions and non-answers. What positions are being eliminated? We're working through the process. What programs are frozen? That's not finalized. What's the evaluation criteria? We're collaborating with OMB. Every response was the same evasive rhythm, and every time Patel sidestepped, DeLauro pushed harder. This wasn't political theater. It was accountability on trial. Because when an agency that oversees national security, counterterrorism, and cybercrime can't explain its own cuts, it raises more than budgetary red flags. It raises existential ones. Behind Patel's calm tone, there was a bigger tension no one wanted to say out loud. Maybe the FBI was being forced to make choices that couldn't survive public scrutiny. Maybe streamlining meant scaling back operations the public assumes are untouchable. When pressed again, Patel repeated that the Bureau's real request was $11.2 billion, enough to avoid any layoffs or program losses. That sounded reassuring, until you remembered the official proposal still showed $500 million less. It was a contradiction dressed as confidence that DeLauro didn't miss a beat. Then tell us where that number came from. Who decided the cuts? What gets left behind? Patel hesitated again. He said they were focusing on how not to have cuts. That sentence landed like a brick, not what to cut, not how to balance the budget. Just how not to have cuts. It was the kind of line that sounds responsible on paper. But in Washington, it's code for we don't want to talk about it. The hearing could have ended there, but DeLauro pushed for something specific, anything that resembled an actual plan. That's when Patel revealed one detail that finally broke the fog. 94 positions were being transferred from Washington, D.C. to field offices across the country. That on its face, that sounded logical. More agents on the ground, closer to violent crime hotspots, more community-level presence. It was the kind of headline-friendly answer that plays well on the evening news. But DeLauro wasn't after headlines. She wanted context. Because moving jobs isn't the same as keeping them. Were these new hires or reassignments? Were analysts leaving critical intelligence divisions in D.C.? Which programs were losing manpower to make this happen? Patel said the relocations would get a handle on violent crime in every single community. But without details, it sounded like a promise without a blueprint. The deeper you looked, the more contradictions surfaced. If the FBI's top priority was violent crime, why propose a budget that effectively defunds it? Why move analysts while cutting funds that support their work? And why did the Bureau's own director seem unable or unwilling to explain the math behind it? DeLauro's frustration wasn't performative. She spelled out the stakes with precision. We need to know which overhead positions are being cut. We need to know how these changes affect intelligence analysis. Without that information, we can't determine if the FBI's capacity is being strengthened or weakened. Patel agreed politely. Yes, ma'am. But everyone in the room knew that was a placeholder answer. And here's where the bigger picture comes into focus. The FBI isn't just another line item on a spreadsheet. It's the country's frontline defense against everything from cyber attacks to terrorism to organized crime. A 5% budget cut isn't symbolic, it's operational. It means slower investigations, fewer surveillance teams, reduced lab work, and strained partnerships with local law enforcement. Even the smallest reduction can ripple into public safety. So, when DeLauro asked for clarity, she wasn't nitpicking numbers. She was testing the FBI's transparency. And the response she got was a masterclass in controlled vagueness. To the public, budget reform sounds harmless. To agents and analysts, it means choosing which cases get priority and which ones stall. It means less coverage, longer wait times, and sometimes critical intelligence slipping through cracks. Patel may not have intended to sound evasive, but the optics were brutal. A director unable to explain his own budget feeds the exact narrative the FBI has tried to shake for years, that it's insulated, unaccountable, and politically cautious when it should be transparent. That DeLauro wasn't asking for state secrets. She was asking for math. That distinction matters. The tension in that hearing revealed a truth bigger than either of them said aloud. America's most powerful investigative agency might be running on confusion at the top. Patel's insistence that we're working through the process hinted at an uncomfortable reality. The Bureau may be juggling political pressure from multiple sides, forced to present a budget that satisfies everyone and explains nothing. Meanwhile, the ripple effects of those decisions land on the agents in the field, the analysts who track digital threats, and the local partners who rely on federal resources that might now be gone. By the time DeLauro wrapped her questioning, the exhaustion in her voice said it all. We can't determine what to fund or not fund without transparency, she told Patel. We need to know what's being cut and why. Her words echoed through the chamber like a warning shot. This wasn't about party lines. It was about accountability itself. If an agency as powerful as the FBI can't, or won't, explain how it's spending taxpayer money, what does that say about every other department hiding behind red tape? And the more you replay Patel's answers, the clearer it becomes. He wasn't being evasive for fun. He was caught between two impossible choices. Admit the FBI is cutting critical programs, or admit he doesn't have control over the budget at all. Neither answer would have gone over well. So he said as little as possible. That's the quiet tragedy of bureaucratic Washington. Everyone's talking, but no one's actually saying anything. When DeLauro pressed for evaluation criteria, how programs are chosen for freezing or deletion, Patel had no answer ready. We're still assessing, he said, still assessing. That phrase might sound harmless, but it's the death knell of accountability. Because every day still assessing drags on, more positions stay vacant, more programs remain suspended, and more communities lose federal support. Patel's defenders might argue he was being careful, waiting for final budget approvals before making promises. And maybe that's true. Maybe he didn't want to reveal sensitive reallocations before they were finalized. But perception matters. And in this hearing, perception was devastating to TO viewers. It looked like a top law enforcement official dodging basic financial questions. To lawmakers, it looked like the FBI was treating Congress, and by extension, the American public, as outsiders in its own operations. That disconnect is dangerous, because transparency isn't just a political talking point. It's a foundation of public trust. When people start believing federal agencies are hiding things, conspiracy theories thrive. Accountability collapses. Patel's measured tone might have calmed the optics inside the hearing room. But outside, the story wrote itself. FBI director can't explain $500 million cut. And in an age where misinformation spreads faster than facts, that headline alone can erode confidence in one of the most critical institutions in the country. The irony is that both Patel and DeLauro want the same thing on paper: safety, efficiency, and accountability. Their clash wasn't about ideology, it was about visibility. One demanded clear answers, the other offered procedural promises. But promises don't fund analysts. Promises don't stop violent crime. Promises don't fill empty offices. Budgets do. And without a transparent one, even the best intentions mean nothing. As the hearing wrapped, DeLauro thanked Patel for his time, but her tone carried more concern than gratitude. She left with the same unanswered questions she started with, and Patel left having survived the hearing, but not the optics. The clip quickly spread across political feeds and news cycles, each outlet spinning its own version. Some framed DeLauro as a hero for demanding answers. Others said Patel was playing defense for an administration caught between competing priorities. But strip away the politics, and what you're left with is a simple truth. The FBI's credibility depends on its transparency. And when transparency becomes optional, trust disappears. The next time someone in Washington talks about budget reform or operational realignment, remember this hearing. Remember how a simple question, "What are you cutting?" turned into an hour-long dance around accountability. Because when an agency's director can't, or won't, say what's being cut, the problem isn't just numbers. It's trust, and trust is a lot harder to restore than a budget. What do you think? Was Kash Patel being cautious because the process isn't finished yet? Or was he deliberately avoiding uncomfortable truths about what's really being defunded behind closed doors? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you believe accountability still matters, even when the answers are inconvenient, make sure to hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe for more breakdowns that cut through the noise and expose what's really happening behind the scenes.